Hogstye.
Hey everybody, this is Alex, your host on the Hogstye. I have Jamal here with me, I got Steve here with me. It is Saturday, June 19th when we are recording this. And, you know, we have actually kind of not a jam-packed show because it's that part of the season where everyone's on vacation.
But please listen anyway.
Yes. Listen anyway, because we've figured out some fun topics to talk about. It's just, you know, there's no training camp going on right now, so what are we going to do?
It's the exciting time of the NFL calendar.
Yeah. I mean, remember back in the day, the biggest deal was when we got the Chris Cooley and Jason Campbell in, like, Disney World pictures, and that's all we had to go on for, like, a month with this time of year?
Hey, this was the time of year on this show we used to do things like we did the show in British accents one time. Remember that?
Yeah, we tried that.
I tried to do Kermit the Frog for an hour.
Yeah, you tried to do that. Robbie Duncan, when he was on the show, would be just doing Jay Gruden impression after Jay Gruden impression. It was a thing.
I think Sean had some like football, fantasy football game he played.
Right, he tried to make a Dungeons and Dragons fantasy football game.
That was a total bust.
Yeah, because we spent 2 hours and it got us a first down.
First down.
Yeah, that was weird, man.
I'd rather just do Kermit for an hour than do that again.
Well, we did do that one game that I came up with that I thought was fun. Was the when I looked on eBay and just found a bunch of random, like, old merchandise and had you guys try to guess the price.
We did that. We had a name game one time. Guess whether it was a football player name or like a medieval name or so. That was another Sean.
No, that was Robbie, I think.
Was that Robbie?
Yeah. Yes, Jamal.
That was like the fill the time in June. So we're much better at that now.
Right. Our first season, Jamal, we had some rough spots.
To say the least.
Yeah.
I'm about to say, yeah. I avoided all that chicanery. I guess that's
We knew what we were doing by the time you came. Thank God.
All right, well, guys, we do have some topics we want to talk about. We got our position group breakdown to get to later. We actually are going to do two, because I think we're going to talk running backs and we're going to talk about the special teams punt return competition. But first, let's talk about two topics that Steve kind of came up with here. One, Steve, I want to talk about the quick one first. You were watching ESPN this morning, which you don't normally do apparently, and you said you saw Ron Rivera on there talking about how Ryan Fitzpatrick he thinks could be the franchise quarterback for a few years, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Given that Ryan Fitzpatrick is like my age.
They quoted him. They did not have a video of him, and I don't watch a ton of ESPN anymore. I really don't. But So the gist of the quote was, it started with a Tom Brady discussion. It was Marcus Spears and other people who I didn't care about discussing this thing, and they were literally with a straight face talking about Tom Brady playing at 50, which is absurd. But right. And then they went into this quote from Rivera, in which Rivera said something along the lines of, he's 37, why can't he keep playing? If he's playing well, there's no reason why he can't be here for several years. What that was implying was that perhaps Ron Rivera thinks that Ryan Fitzpatrick is, in fact, his quarterback of the future. We all thought, everybody on this show, the entire fan base, everybody thought that Ryan Fitzpatrick's just a placeholder. They're going to draft somebody. They're going to, Taylor Heineke magic will happen and he won't get hurt, whatever. But this is sort of the first time I saw Rivera himself insinuating, or in fact not insinuating, directly stating that perhaps Ryan Fitzpatrick is the Ron Rivera quarterback of the future, which I thought was interesting. And just I'll give my thoughts on it since I'm already talking here. I mean, it's not that he can't be in the league. Ryan Fitzpatrick's problem from day one has been his consistency and his ability to do it game in and game out for years. And that's something that I think it might be a bit unrealistic to think.
I think you're probably right. Jamal, I'm going to go to you first on your thoughts because I'm still trying to gather what, I really think about this.
I mean, he's being optimistic and Ron is hoping for the best in the Rivera situation. The Fitzpatrick situation. Specifically from this standpoint, In my opinion, right? Because I feel like before the draft, before we even got Fitzpatrick, we knew we was going to try and have to get a quarterback, whether it was through free agency, and I was saying Fitzpatrick or Jameis Winston through free agency, and then the draft you're talking about even after the fact, you're like you got to go get a quarterback regardless. And with that being said, you knew that your future was not on this team. And when you're talking about Fitzpatrick now and you signed a 38-year-old quarterback, you know at some point you're going to have to revisit this process all over again. So from Rivera's standpoint, you're hoping things work out because, like, why would you want to revisit the process right now, knowing that you got, a 5-year deal, you want to marry some type of short-term marriage, and you're hoping Fitzpatrick can be that guy and that he can showcase what he did in Miami. So essentially, the 2-year thing, it's all off the basis of optimism, because if it doesn't work out, you're back at square one again in year 3. Like, you're back at square one again in year 3, and time is running out. Like, you got 3 years left. You got the 3rd year, the 4th year, and the 5th year. And I mean, yes, you want to hit on your quarterback as soon as possible. You don't want to keep going through this quarterback carousel, not only for Rivera, but from a fan base standpoint. We're going on 35 years. We're approaching 35 years without a quarterback. And technically, if you want to talk about franchise quarterbacks, technically it's even longer, because Washington won their Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks. It wasn't like it was a stable position even during the Gibbs era. I mean, y'all know better than me, but my point is that there was just multiple quarterbacks that won during that time period.
Really go back to Joe Theismann, realistically, if you really wanted to, because Mark Rippon is only here and playing for a couple seasons, like
right.
What, 3 years?
Before he started getting hurt, I think it was
really
4.
And truly, Theismann was the same way. He was only here and starting for a few. You could probably go back to, Sonny Jurgensen, if you really wanted a quarterback who was here and stable. Other than Jason Campbell. Jason Campbell was the one guy who was here and played for several years.
Kirk.
He would probably be the same. I'm about to say Kirk. He would probably Jason Campbell and Kirk would probably be the same time. Same time.
If you're counting number of starts, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I've looked this up before. It's Sammy Ball 100 years ago had something like 300 starts for this team. He was the franchise quarterback for a long time. Then Sonny's number 2 in the 200s somewhere, and then Theismann's in the low 100s.
I'm going to tell you what Theismann is here just a second.
Yeah.
Got him.
Okay.
So Theismann had 124 starts in 167 games.
Right. So, that's about 8 years, if I'm doing the math correctly. I know he also started when we were 14.
Yeah, okay. So Theismann started more years than I thought.
Yeah.
Because, again, some of this is sort of before my time even. But
right.
He became a starter in 1978, and then 85 was when Lawrence Taylor broke his leg. And so he did play 8 full years. And so, so Theismann, I think, realistically, was the last one who really was here as a franchise quarterback for an extended period of time.
It depends on what you call a franchise quarterback. Is 8 years of franchise? Probably, especially back then.
I would say he got to 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
I would say
he got to 2 Super Bowls.
So,
yes.
To wrap up my point, because I know I was going a little wild, it was just the sense of, like, Rivera is in a situation where he's hoping that things work out with Fitzpatrick, because, like, if things don't work out, you're facing this process all over again. And then on top of that, like if you get put in a bad situation draft wise where you're in the middle and you can't really get the top tier quarterbacks, then that's a problem. So you're hoping things work out and you can casually find a young quarterback to develop. But outside of that, it's either Fitzpatrick, or you're hoping Heineke does something amazing in preseason and training camp where you're like, you can't deny that he needs to be on the field with the starters. And those are really the short-term options, short/long-term options right now for Rivera.
Well, so here's where I come at it from. I think, what Rivera says is all well and good, from a psychological standpoint maybe, but let's be realistic. And Steve, you're older than me. I'm about the same age as Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm 37, turning 38 this year.
You're exactly the same age as Ryan
Yeah.
Fitzpatrick.
You just do not heal the same in your late 30s when you get hurt that you do in your 20s. And I know they have the top medical care versus what I get, through just normal insurance and stuff like that. But if you injure, like, you just wake up hurt sometimes when you get older. Like, things just don't heal.
Well, it's even more than that, though,
yeah.
Alex. It's that your athletic ability just leaves you. You're
Right.
just not the same person as you were.
You
know?
can't run as fast. You're.
Well, that's why I think it's so absurd to think that Tom Brady's going to be playing football at 50, and the idea that they were actually entertaining that this morning is just crazy.
Of course.
I think.
But my point is more along the lines of, after a quarterback gets into his mid-30s, it's really more luck that they keep going. Fitzpatrick, it's a luck that he actually hasn't played as much. He's not playing 16 games a year for years now. Either he's benched for a younger guy, or he does get a minor injury that sidelines him. But, like, you have to go way back in his career now to find a 16-game season for him. So, like, realistically, you can't bank on this guy's going to be our starter for more than a season.
No, and there's only a handful of quarterbacks in NFL history that have ever played at 40.
Right. Right. We were thrown off by the fact that we've had 3 in recent history, and I think everyone's like, "Oh, this is going to be normal." No, it's not. Tony Romo still retired at 36. Alex Smith got hurt at 35, and played last year at 37, and that's it.
And for that matter, Drew Brees has had a huge struggle injury-wise in the past several years.
And so did Peyton Manning.
Yeah. I like to add to, well, first of all, Kirk Cousins, to finish up that discussion, really had 3 seasons.
Sure.
And then Jason Campbell really had 4. So it was
Right.
really Theismann was the one. Because I didn't look Rippon up, but Rippon, I think, maybe had 3 or 4, and that was it.
I think 3.5.
Yeah. And so Theismann was really the guy. But to piggyback on Jamal's point, with Rivera sort of getting a quarterback in the middle of his coaching cycle, I'd like to add that, yes, you're right. He didn't want to start over in year 3, but also the 5th year of any coach's career normally doesn't happen.
Right.
Okay? Either you get an extension. They now almost never play a lame duck year. They either get fired after year 4 or they get an extension. And so if you kind of play this out in a negative way, and I don't mean to be negative Nancy here, but I mean, if things go badly, and then all of a sudden you start over in year 3 with some rookie or whoever, I mean, you may see Ron Rivera leaving Washington. Because I think the idea of him starting over in year 3 with a rookie is definitely not what he wants to do. He knows at that point he'd only have 2 years to make it work.
Unless they
3.
give an extension after this season.
Yeah, but it would have to work
Yeah.
for him to get an extension. And if it goes kaflooey because Ryan Fitzpatrick goes kaflooey, that may actually end his Washington career.
It could, but I think they are. So I think it also depends on how much communication is there between Rivera, the Snyders, and the front office folks about the plan, the big
Is there
plan.
more than one Snyder I need to know about?
Dan and his wife, because apparently
his wife has nothing to do with it.
Well, she apparently doesn't let him out of his sight, from what it looks like.
That may be because he's chasing skirts more.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I think we all know what the stories might be.
I don't know anything. I was joking for the record.
But I'm just talking about the stuff that's been in the press last year. I think that as long as Ron Rivera says, "Here was the plan. We're going to rebuild the entire roster and worry about quarterbacks separately," and as long as you can keep selling that as your plan, as your overall plan, I think you'll have time.
We all thought that Jay Gruden had time. We all thought
Jay Gruden
that
got 6 years.
But it never really worked. You
No.
know, I mean, I think we're all optimistic about every coach that's came. Even I had at least some tiny amount of optimism about even Jim Zorn for 5 minutes.
Until you saw him building shades and renaming them. It's like, dude, you just
What was really
built
once
a
he
tent.
said, "I want to wear the maroon and black," and that was in his opening press conference. So
black, and
my
yellow.
optimism went away.
that
at
might have
point.
been less than 5 minutes in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
those were
might
like
have been
2
the end of my
sentences in.
optimism.
When he said that, like real time, because I heard it driving, I think on
Yeah.
our way back from church, and I'm like, in my head, I didn't realize he even made a mistake. I'm like, oh, we got new uniforms? Like that. That's when I was young. So I'm like, oh, we got new uniforms coming up. Like, is that something that's about to be revealed? And lo and behold, he was just being an idiot. He had he had no knowledge about Washington at all.
They even had him wearing a burgundy and gold tie, like in the press conference.
Yeah, he even had the right colors on his body. Yeah.
Right.
But my point is, I mean, we're all optimistic about Ron, and we all like Ron, but if the quarterback situation goes badly for 2 more seasons, we aren't going to like Ron anymore. You know, that's just the way Washington is. And the history of Dan Snyder as the owner of the team is that he leaves these coaches alone for a couple years, and then it goes south, and he goes south, and we have hell in D.C. again.
Yeah.
And so he's got to get Jamal is right. He doesn't want to be starting over in year 3 with a new quarterback. He really doesn't. And so I don't quite know what the plan here is because, Alex, you're right in saying you just can't expect like a 39-year-old dude to be able to be effectively leading a team.
No,
hopefully he is, but you just can't count on that, you know.
I agree.
No, and you also can't even bank on some idea of, well, okay, maybe Fitzpatrick's gone this year and we just bring in the next most veteran guy we can. Like
who is that? Yeah, gonna be.
A lot of good guys do not come available every year.
It may be a trend for Rivera. Like it can end up being a system. It's another another theory that I thought about either yesterday or the day before. But like if things don't work out with Fitzpatrick, but in terms of like contractually and stuff like that, things don't work out with Fitzpatrick, but it's clear and evident that the system that Scott Turner has works. They may try and find the plug and play style quarterbacks, like whoever pops up on the market. It can be that's another route that they can take. I'm not saying it's the best option. Like obviously finding the long term is beneficial for a variety of reasons, but like if they're in situations like they found themselves in this all season, like there's gonna be quarterbacks that wants to come here, given that Washington has bolstered up their weapons. So if you can find those veterans who's like, all right, you know, this system works for me, I can play for Scott, I like what they got going on here, then, you know, stuff like that can work. But that's just another option if they said, you know, we don't want to lose that veteran aspect at the quarterback position because like we have something special going on here.
Well, the other thing is, we may be taking Ron Rivera's words too literally, you know, because we have a habit of doing this. Is Ron going to say, listen, I know Ryan's only going to be here a year. He's old. He's not really going to say that either. So this just may be Ron babbling and just talking because somebody asked him a question and he said, sure, maybe Ryan will play. And, you know, maybe he doesn't really mean any of this. And that was just kind of a media babble answer because Lord knows we've babbled a lot of stuff on this show that we didn't really mean. And, you know, you just, when you're talking, you just talk, you know.
Right.
And that may have been what, I don't know if we necessarily need to take what Ron said to or on ESPN, wherever that quote came from, necessarily too literally.
I mean, you got also, since we're talking about quarterback stuff, after minicamp, you know, Rivera was asked about the QB competition, and he's still like, yeah, we're having an open competition. All signs point to the fact that you're kind of not doing that since Fitzpatrick's getting all the number 1 reps.
Well, yeah, I mean, and by competition, what he meant is Ryan Fitzpatrick is my starter.
Right.
That's what he meant by competition.
Right.
You know.
I think he is legitimately hoping maybe one of these younger guys can step up because let's be honest, like we've said before, any of these younger guys getting into that spot and, you know, succeeding would take all this off the table for him.
Well, sure, but
yeah.
I mean,
that you wish in one hand, right?
Taylor Heineke has played 5 minutes at a time before getting hurt.
Right.
Kyle Allen has played 5 minutes at a time before getting hurt. Neither one of these guys are going to make it through a 16-game season if history is a guide.
Right.
And Heineke
and we're on a
in particular
17-game season now.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, Heineke isn't that big either. You know, he's not built in a way that would suggest that he can take a ton of hits. This whole competition thing again may just be Ron Rivera babbling, because unless you've got like Peyton Manning, are you really going to say, yeah, he's the unquestioned starter?
Right.
You two guys who I signed, you have no hope. You're the backup. I mean, he's not going to say that either. So I just a lot of times think that Ron Rivera is better than a lot of coaches at coach speak. You know, like a lot of times Jay Gruden in his early years especially had no filter at all. You know, he would openly blame Robert Griffin for stuff and to the media after games. And, you know,
Right.
a lot of coaches wouldn't do that. And like Ron Rivera, I think is very practiced in the art of coach speak. So I'm not sure we should take any of what he says all that literally.
Right. The nice thing about him is I think he's good at coach speak, but he also talks up the guys all the time when he's doing coach speak, which is what you want to do. Let's move on to the next topic because we went longer on that than I thought.
We got nothing but time, Alex.
I know. So the next one was this story that came out in The Athletic earlier where they kind of did their own simulated name change, pick the new name setup. It sounds like they were trying to mirror what the team's been doing, getting a lot of public opinion, going to marketing experts, bringing in lawyers to make sure the legal side of whatever names they would pick would be able to get through, you know, getting patents and aren't already taken by other sports teams. It was if you're into the minutia of the process, the Athletic article is all for you. But here's my thing, and I'm gonna spoil my opinion very early. You came up with Belters, DC Football Club, Red Hogs, District, Command, and Defiance. If your process gives you that many bad names as your final 6, then your process was wrong. It's very simple. The process doesn't matter if you can't come up with good answers. And I know a lot of people get obsessed with the process now in sports. You know, you hear from athletes like Kirk Cousins all the time. It's about the process. It's about, well, Kirk, you've gone 500 in your career, so maybe you need to change the process.
Kirk was, you know, when Kirk would lose 40-14, he would go, well, I was happy because I followed my process. And that just drives fans crazy. Look, this article, which I admittedly only read right before the show when Alex mentioned they had done this.
Perfectly fine.
This sounds like something that I could have done in about 5 hours without a whole team. This just shows that a lot of reporters don't know what the hell they're talking about when it comes to anything beyond interviewing athletes, to be quite frank. But yeah, so the bottom line is to all this is those names all suck donkey balls. They're terrible names. They're horrible names. And those 6 names, what were they again? So DC Football Club, that's a soccer name. No, thank you.
Right.
Red Hogs. What the hell is a red hog?
Well,
I mean,
it's
I get
a
it.
species
I
of
get
hog.
it. Redskins, hogs.
Yeah,
I get it.
But
That's stupid.
Just go Hogs. So much simpler.
Yeah.
Still ugly.
Districts, it is still ugly. You're right. I agree. And again, you got an Arkansas Razorback problem there too. But districts, that's not even a mascot. The depths of my contempt for districts has no bounds. Belters, that's maybe worse than districts.
Well,
so maybe my.
Here's the thing. It's supposed to be about the Beltway. Why would you want to associate your team with
a clogged freeway?
With the most hated freeway in the region. You know?
A freeway that is the source of everyone's frustrations and the source of 2-hour commutes on a daily basis. Yeah, let's name a football team. Command, okay, there's sort of a military thing there, but Command is a noun only in certain capacities.
Right.
You know, that's a dumb football name.
And
Defiance.
And by the way, on
worse.
that, I think they didn't want to do Commanders because that was one of those failed minor league football teams that just came through recently. You know, like.
So I hate all these names. They're all terrible and they suck. And this process they had came up with the totally wrong solution.
Right. So you agree with me? Process is meaningless.
Yes. In this case, if your process came up with this, you need a new process.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Shoot, it's a little weird. Kind of. Put it this way: when I was trying to necessarily come up with a name of the little Twitch stuff that I do, the Twitch podcast and. And that process in itself, like I didn't even come up with a name till after I started doing it. It was just a stream thing. And that took some time, like in a sense of I went through personally, because I didn't do no deep research, but it took like some time. I went through like it was easily like over 100 names before I settled on what I settled on. And like for them, this stuff is not easy because people will come up with some names and I even outsourced too. Like I went through some people to try and see if they can help generate some ideas in my head. But their names were awful. Their names were awful too. And just from my experience, like they're gonna go through all these names and admittedly they're gonna suck. But with that being said, taking this much time to come up with it, and I understand the process takes up to 18 months. So I'm not even rushing them in a sense from that standpoint, but taking this much time to try to, make sure that this name is perfect, it's not going to be perfect. And I think we all need to come to an understanding that the name isn't going to be perfect, but what's going to be the most important thing when they come up with this name is that even though it may be ugly to some, as long as they're winning, people will be like, you know what? To hell with the name. I support the team. Let's keep it pushing. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from the Athletic article and what they're doing in actual real life. Not the simulator, you know what I'm saying? That they can do what they do. They can, use a company to try and generate these terrible names. But whatever they decide on, it's all going to come down to the success on the field. And Washington football team is generic, it's bland, and at this point, like if they're winning this year, I wouldn't be surprised if they kept Washington football team. Like if they're winning in 2021, they may mess around and say, you know what, Brad, it is what it is. We about to keep Washington football team.
They could. I mean, I'd also just like to say for me, I'm not going to use or root for any of these other names. Mm-hmm. I think the team was pathetic and weak for giving up Redskins in the first place, and I'm just not going to do it. They're lucky I'm still doing this show after you dumped my Redskins, okay? So I maybe not be the best example because, I mean, Jamal's right. It's all about winning ultimately, but I'm not going to root for any of these names, and I'm not going to use these other names. You're not going to con me into saying the Washington Warriors or whatever. It's just not my team, and I'm not going to do it. But again, I'm probably me and Dave Earl are probably an anachronism, in that regard.
Oh, I don't think you're necessarily that. I think, when there were studies done about what would happen if they changed the name before it happened, they came up with about 20% of the fan base would feel that way. And, that I think that holds true. People hate polls and don't like them, but, those numbers can validate a lot. And I won't be surprised if there's just a sizable chunk of the fan base that's like that forever. Just like there's people who still are not over the Bullets becoming the Wizards. But here's my thing in the end when it comes to picking a name. I agree with the overall point that Standig had with this article that no matter what you pick, and you said this too, Jamal, a good chunk of us are not going to be happy with the final name. Probably most of us will not like whatever it is because you're going to have this faction that is in love with Red Wolves, and they'll be upset no matter what if it's not that. You're going to have folks like that who are going to feel that way about Warriors or whatever. And then the chunk like you, Steve, who just want them to go back, and even though it's never going to happen.
Well, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to buy the merchandise. I'm not going to use the name. I'm not going to root for the name.
Right. No, and I understand that. My thing, okay, so if you'll indulge me in the two minor league football teams we got in DC, the Valor and the Defenders, I hated both those names when they came out with them. I still bought a shit ton of gear for both names.
You were the one.
Well, no, I was one of a few thousand, especially with the XFL.
One of two.
The XFL weirdly was selling pretty well here.
for 5 minutes.
Yeah, for 5 minutes. But my point being, I haven't bought any Washington football team gear because that's not a name. And I also realize they're going to pick something for the final, and when they do that, that's when I'll start buying stuff.
The ironic thing is they have a trademark pending on Washington football team.
I'm sure they do. Well, they'd be stupid not to. They got to trademark anything.
I wouldn't. It wouldn't surprise me. Jamal, you said this. It wouldn't surprise me a ton they go through this and go, you know what, we're just going to keep Washington football team. Because that would almost, for people like me, that would irritate me less than if you rename it to something, especially some god-awful thing like Defiance or, oh my God.
Defiance is awful. I know names should end, or names should be like a proper noun, not an action, not command, which is, singular, which is weird for a sports team name.
Well, the Defiance isn't even a noun.
Well, no,
it's argue defiant.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's not. Except if you want to call a football team the Defiance, then it's a noun.
Right.
It'd be a pretty cool, like, punk rock band, maybe, the Defiance.
Maybe, yeah.
But, yeah, it's a terrible football name. But my point is, I kind of think that Washington football team would irritate me and my crowd a lot less than any other name.
Mm.
And if they win, because you're right. I mean, I've always said this. You could put, the Redskin games in the parking lot of Piggly Wiggly, and if they were winning, 70,000 people would show up.
Sure.
The stadium is totally irrelevant. The amenities of the stadium are totally irrelevant. Winning is the only thing that matters. And so, yeah, if they win as the Washington football team, maybe they just keep it. I'll just keep saying Washington, and, everybody would be happy. But if they start to lose and then they rename it as the Washington Red Hogs or something, it just that has disaster written all over it.
Yeah. Well, so here's my last thing I'll say on the names that people have come up with. There's no name that I've fallen in love with yet. Like I thought Red Wolf was interesting, but then those people just annoy me. And that's more the fans of it than anything else.
The only thing that didn't totally turn me off was Red Tails. That I kind of like because it's in reference to a historic military unit, and I like that. And that would be maybe the one thing that would maybe not completely turn me off, and maybe you could talk me into using Red Tails because of the connection to the Ski Airmen.
My one that I've is I don't love Red Hogs, but I do kind of like Hogs just because. Well, one, it's perfect because our website's already named, and we don't have to change anything there. But I do like that tie back to the history of the team a little bit.
I'm not. I'm actually with Alex in the sense of I'm not tied to a name yet. And throughout this whole process, I ain't gonna lie to you, I have not been tied to a name. Like it just hasn't been there for me. It's like I'm just patiently waiting. And I said this 1,000 times already. I'm just patient. I understand the process is going to take some time, so I'm just not even committing to names. Like the one that I liked, or that I didn't mind, was Generals, and I got feedback which was negative, in the sense of, the Harlem Globetrotters played this team in this area and they were awful. And I'm like, personally, I don't give a damn about the Generals who play basketball against the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, I don't
a fake basketball team.
Yeah, I don't
really
care about that. Like the Generals can make sense, and the DC Generals can make sense, or Washington Generals, whatever, however they want to phrase it. And that was the one back then where I was like, that one made sense for me. But I mean, outside of that, I'm not committing to anything, and I'm not really a fan of any name like that. The Red Wolves thing is kind of incredible to see that momentum online. I see less talk about it now, which is pleasing, aesthetically pleasing to see when I scroll through Twitter. But yeah, that was, and I'm not even against Red Wolves in a sense of like, if the team brought it to us, but seeing so many people talk about it, it became nauseous. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's all about the fan base of it that annoys me.
Yeah, by the way, since Dave and I were working on his column and all of that, I did go check the trademark records again last weekend, and there are no new trademarks filed by the entity that owns this football team or anybody that made me think that it has a connection to Dan Snyder. So I think they have not started the process. They have not decided on a name yet.
That's kind of surprising that they haven't even started that.
Well, they haven't filed a trademark, and there's no like third party thing that I think could be they just.
You would have thought they would have.
They haven't filed anything.
They'd at least have filed a couple, like maybe not narrowed it down, but let's file the 5 or 6 we're thinking of or something. But
they haven't done that.
That's crazy. All right, guys.
We could check, at one point, we checked the. I remember the Hogsty checked the domain logs, website domains, and there was one name that it was the Sentinels that we found that this like third party had that we figured out was like sort of a domain managing type company that hosts things for third party. That was the one thing that we thought maybe that somebody legitimate had DC Sentinels, but we never could figure out who it was.
Right. Okay, we should move on and get to our position group breakdown because we're about halfway through the show. So, guys, let's talk about running backs. Jamal, you wrote the article about the running back position this week, so I'm going to let you lead the way on this. Where do you want to start?
I mean, from a general perspective, going into the actual draft process, we kind of knew where we stood with the 3 that we had, right? Or 3, we technically had 4, but 3 in terms of usage, which was Antonio Gibson, J.D. McKissic, and Peyton Barber. You had Antonio, who was essentially the guy who's getting majority of the touches, J.D. McKissic, who had a defined role, and as well as Peyton Barber, who had defined roles. J.D. McKissic was the Swiss Army knife in a sense where they can use him as a receiver out of the backfield, and he had some carries, and he can be used in a variety of ways in that regard. But Peyton Barber, again, defined role, and he's only used to move the sticks in short yardage situations. The issue with Peyton Barber, in my opinion, was that although he was moving the ball, he only averaged 2.7 yards per carry. And whether or not he has that role or something carved out for this team doesn't really matter because statistically and production-wise, 2.7 is an ugly average. And that's from a coaching standpoint, and that is from a player standpoint. Like, anything under 3.5 is just something where it's just not ideal. Granted, he had, I think, less than 100 carries, but he was definitely in the 90s, if I can recall.
He had 98 touches overall.
Yeah, so so he was under 100 touches in the season, but at the same time, like, to maximize your effectiveness, you kind of you have to take that into account. Like, you weren't really doing he was not the best in the role that he had. Now, for example, and this is a story for another day, and I put that in the column. Like, if you asked Adrian Peterson to do that same role, he's probably getting you like 3.7 to 4 in that same exact role. He's probably getting you that much. And again, like, whether or not he wants to do that or wanted to do that or was okay with that, that's another story. But that's just an example, right? So, with that being said, moving into 2021, you kind of know what's going on, right? You know that Antonio is going to be around, JD's going to be around. Peyton Barber is going to be here to compete, but who is going to be that third guy in the rotation? So you take into account Peyton Barber, right? You take into account Jonathan Williams, Lamar Miller, who was technically the fourth person I was speaking of. He just didn't play that much. And then you have Jared Patterson that is around. The question here is who's going to be able to actually step up. So I guess it's a 4-man competition in that regard between Peyton, Lamar, Jared, and Jonathan. Who's going to be that guy to step up and prove that I can handle that role, that spellback role that can come in for JD or Antonio. Excuse me. Whenever Randy Jordan calls me in for a series. So In y'all opinion, I guess I'll ask the question to y'all. Which type of back are you leaning? Are you more favorable in a sense? And I say that because Jared Patterson, he has a play style that is somewhat like a bowling ball, but Ron Rivera called him Darren Sproles in a sense. Like when he watched him play, he has sneaky hands, but he's also like low to the ground and kind of hard to tackle in that regard. And then you have Lamar Miller, who's the veteran, the wild card of the group. He has a proven track record, averaging over 4.5 yards a carry throughout his career. Just didn't, like, for whatever circumstances existed last year and maybe 2019, he just wasn't playing that much. I know his contract had a lot to do with it in Houston, getting paid a lot, and it was becoming too expensive. And then Jonathan Williams, who just hasn't been around. He's on his 5th team in his 5th year in the league, and he just hasn't found a place to stick. So you don't know what you're going to get. And on top of that, I think he doesn't even have 30 carries in his career, if I'm not mistaken. So like you have like these wild card guys throughout the group, but you only know what Peyton and you only know what Lamar is. So who are you all leaning towards is the question I would ask you all in terms of the play style and how it can fit here in Washington.
I don't know why Lamar Miller isn't in this role. I'm on Team Miller. I mean, no, I don't think he could be a franchise, every down franchise back probably anymore, but I think is, and always has been a better running back than Peyton Barber.
Sure.
I don't really quite understand why he didn't get more love from the coaching staff last year, because he was on the practice squad and, he was only active for one game. So I think Lamar Miller would be the guy. And as to Patterson, I think Patterson was a bowling ball bit by University of Buffalo standards, but he's not a bowling ball running back. This is not a dude who's going to run over. But I did a film study on him a few weeks ago. He is a combination of elusiveness, burst, and he's not one to initiate contact, and uses his size to his advantage. So I don't think Lamar Miller. I don't think Patterson is a bowling ball. I agree with Rivera. But to answer Jamal's question, I think Lamar Miller is the obvious choice.
I'm leaning towards Miller myself too. And here's where I come down on it. The reason Peyton Barber was in the role he was in, and he's a kind of bigger back. Not huge. He's only 220 something. But, he's got enough size where you feel comfortable throwing a guy like that in the A-gap to pick up the 1 or 2 yards on a 3rd and short. Now, they tried to use him for more than that, which is why he was not productive. But, you need at least some size from a running back to really trust them to do those types of plays. The run up the gut, get a few yards, and fall forward. And that's where my concern about Patterson is he's very small by NFL standards. And even if you watch his highlights from training camp, you can tell how much smaller he is than everybody else.
He's 5'7".
Yeah.
No matter what they have him listed at, he's 5'7".
Yeah, he's a tiny guy. Now he's quick. He's got good hands. I think there's a role on this team in the future, maybe when J.D. McKissick leaves probably next year, because I just you're gonna.
Well, Patterson can run.
Yeah.
He's not just a pass catcher. Okay, Patterson can run. I do think it's a legitimate concern to think about his size.
Right.
When you're 5'7", 195, can he take an NFL pounding when you've got some 6'3", 240-pound linebacker on the Bears or whatever hitting you? I mean, that's a legitimate question. As to the size issue, I mean, Lamar Miller's 5'10", 221.
Right.
Barber's 5'11", 225. They're about the same.
Right, and Jonathan Williams, I think, is 5 something. Or no, he's
6 foot,
yeah,
217.
Yeah. So they're all that same kind of build. Which, by the way, it's not huge in running back standards, but it's a pretty good size.
Well, I mean, Williams is a little bit longer and leaner.
Yeah. But not by much. I focus more on the weight more than height when it comes to running backs. It's not like a receiver where I care if a guy's 6'3" or not.
No, but I'm just talking about his build.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a little taller, doesn't weigh quite as much, and so he's a little leaner.
Sure.
That's what
Sure.
my point is.
Now, so look, if I were building this based off of the pure upside talent, I'd go with Patterson. I think that, from what I've seen of the kid and what he did at Buffalo, he intrigues me more than these other three guys. Much more. Just, I think he's got an interesting skill set. But
We need to see him in preseason.
yeah, we'll need to see him in preseason, of course, how he goes against better competition. But in the end, it's more that we need somebody in who can fill that A gap role, that just run it between the tackles type job. And yeah, I'm with you. I think Miller's probably your best bet. I would give him the first shot at it. Now I know part of the reason he hasn't played much is he got a bad injury in Houston, right?
Yeah.
And so 2019, I think he got an ACL or something. So that's why he's just been kind of missing for a while.
He missed the whole season. I wouldn't swear to ACL, but he missed the whole season.
I'm actually I'm looking. Yeah, it looks like
I
it's
got
an
it.
ACL. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe, hopefully 2 years out he has something left in the tank, but see if he's got anything left in the tank first. Barber, I guess, would be Plan B, just for that role. Whatever, if Barber comes back, you got to use him way less. That would be my one thing.
I mean,
Just
but
rely
that's
on
kind of
J.D. McKissick and Gibson.
But that's kind of the purpose of the spell back, though. Because they're going to need a break. JD and Antoine, I said Antoine, Jesus Christ, Antonio Gibson. They're going to need a break. And if you can't trust your third guy, or if you want to limit his role even further, like he only had 100 or less than 100 last year. Like if you want to limit it even further, then that's not ideal for two backs who already have majority of the touches. Like I would say increase it. Like Lamar can be, if you're talking about between Gibson and McKissick, right? If you're talking about, let's say, between 25 averaging 25 touches a game between those two, your third guy should be around 7 to 10 a game. So if my math is right, because I'm not that good at math.
Well, that's about 35 rushes a game, and that's
no. I said
a lot
touches.
of
I didn't say
rushes.
rushes. I said touches.
Touches.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're
All
talking
right.
about 7, what's that? Yeah, if you're averaging 7 touches a game for your third guy for 17 games, that's 119. So that's well over 100 mark. So I was like, you gotta kind of get that third guy involved.
Well, I'm just looking at their stats, McKissick and Gibson right now. I'll pull them up. So Gibson had 170 rushes and 44 targets receiving. So that's just over 200, 214. And then I think we all kind of knew this about JD. He was 85 rushes and 80 receptions on 110 targets, which is a crazy number of targets and catches for a running back, but that's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's unrealistic to say maybe you can get J.D. McKissick the ball a few more times in the backfield there and get him to right around 100. Maybe Gibson, almost the reverse. I want to see him getting the ball thrown to him more. So realistically, my big beef with Peyton Barber when I broke down his numbers a while back was he had 98 touches, but only 25 or 26 were first downs. If you're using him for anything other than trying to get a first down, I think you're not using him right. So you realistically you could take at least half of his away, so that would pull him down to 50, split 25. I think you could realistically give 25 carries or touches to the other two guys. That's not too bad. But again, this is all assuming you stick with Peyton Barber. I think ideally we're upgrading from Peyton Barber with one of these guys. If not, well, I guess you can't do two because there's just too many guys to keep.
I don't know. I mean, Ron never acted like he was unhappy with Barber.
Right.
I agree.
I mean, he kept getting those touches. Lamar Miller was sitting in the practice squad room all year.
No, he wasn't in our practice squad. He was in Chicago.
Yes, he was.
Was he?
Yes, he was. That is what he did. He was on the practice squad.
I thought he was in Chicago all last year.
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, for a brief period of time, yeah, but he was signed to Washington to the practice squad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that does kind of throw a wrench into it then, which is no good.
Well, Jamal, you never said your opinion. I mean, who should be? Who was the?
You're right. I honestly think it'll end up being Lamar. I think Lamar is going to be the guy, and I think the close second will end up being Jared Patterson. Peyton Barber. And now, as much as I rag on him, I respect the fact that he stuck within his role and he did okay in it. I also feel like watching him just get the handoff and just lowering his head and trying to get 2 yards. Like they said 2 yards, so I'm gonna get him 2. Like I don't think that's ideal. So I respect the fact that he was aware of his role, but that's just not ideal for a person, like for a team who are trying to breed playmakers or develop playmakers. Get a Lamar in there. In my opinion, is that Lamar will end up showing that he's better than Peyton. But get a guy in there who can see the field even better than Peyton, even though he's only asking to get like those short yardage things, or even for Lamar who's a little bit more versatile, they're not going to ask him to come in on 3rd and 2 only. Like they'll put him in at 2nd and 5, 3rd and 6 possibly, 1st and 5, like, or even 3rd and 2. Like he can do all of that, and that's kind of where I'm at with Lamar. Jared Patterson he intrigues me the same way he intrigues you all. But I'm not willing to say he's going to be better than Lamar or Peyton yet. But I think that the close second, in a sense, is that he'll end up earning his way into the practice squad. But I'm giving him that opportunity to prove to me that he can be better than Lamar. So that's why I was like close second. So I'm intrigued by him as well.
About Patterson, I will say that I think Ron Rivera likes him a lot. And remember, he was the only undrafted free agent they signed right after the draft.
Yeah.
He was the one guy. And so I do think he's going to get an opportunity, to do it.
I've thought for a while about Patterson that kind of what Jamal said, he's probably going to be a practice squad guy. If not, he's just inactive on game days for a season. I don't know how highly they'll think of him, but they might just do that. I really do think, though, the more I look at what he does, it makes more sense for him to be paired with Gibson in that long-term role, because, like I said, I just assume J.D. McKissick will be here for 1 year and then go. Even though he's been productive, people don't want to pay running backs, generally speaking. So,
well, yeah. I mean,
there's that team math that's going to happen. I think Patterson might be
Le'Veon Bell
here.
says hi.
Yeah. Patterson might be here to replace J.D. McKissick in a year. That's what I think.
Okay, I want to correct myself. Miller was on the Chicago practice squad.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Washington signed him off the practice squad in mid-December. So I was thinking of Miller on the Chicago practice squad. He wasn't with Washington very long, just to be clear.
Okay.
I don't, I think Patterson doesn't really have a big history of pass catching. I don't know if you can just assume that he's going to be a J.D. McKissick level pass catcher. He's really a running back. He's a running back. He's not a guy who has a history of pass catching on 3rd down at Buffalo. Buffalo was a dedicated running team.
Yeah, I realize that. I meant that he's just going to get that second role, not necessarily the same job.
Okay.
But,
yes.
Yeah.
I think that is what Ron Rivera wants for him.
Right. I think he's your. You use the term spellback to talk about the 3rd stringer. I'm old enough where I think of spellback as the number 2 guy, Jamal.
I don't think I've ever said spellback.
Yeah.
No.
It usually was the number 2, but nowadays when you as the game evolved, you kind of get those backfields where multiple people can do a lot of things. So like the 1 and 2 is interchangeable because they're going to use them a lot. So that spellback is someone. And this is how I view it nowadays. But the spellback is someone who can come in and be that what used to be second guy. Now he's that 3rd guy who can just fill in.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that term started in like the 70s. It's a really old football term, frankly.
I don't think I've ever said the word spell back
No,
before.
no. What about
I don't think
workhorse
so.
back? No.
Workhorse, yes.
Yeah, because it used to be every team just had one guy who was the guy. It feels like.
Earl Campbell was the ultimate workhorse.
Just
Yeah,
know I was
yeah.
thinking of Earl Campbell. I was literally thinking of Earl Campbell.
Rigo would be up there too, in my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rigo, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think. Those guys are what I think of workhorse back. It's certainly, there really isn't one. Maybe Frank Gore at one point in time would have been one.
AP was.
In modern life.
AP was once.
Mm-hmm. AP was
I guess.
too.
Yeah. Yeah, probably so.
But yeah, in the modern game, no one really has just one running back who can do it all anymore. It's a shame. All right, well that covers the running backs. Unless you guys have any final thoughts on this.
No, are we going to do a real quick let me predict the roster here.
Okay.
So I think they will keep 3 on the active.
Right.
And then at least 1, maybe 2 on the practice squad. So Gibson is a lock. McKissick's a lock. And so I'll go with Miller over Barber. And I guess that automatically forces Jarrett Patterson to the practice squad just because I'm not willing to give him the benefit of the doubt considering we haven't seen him at all.
I agree with you, Steve.
Yeah, Miller and then Patterson practice squad. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we all agree.
Yeah, I think we're all, and we might be hoping a little with Miller beating Barber, but that it's pretty safe on at least three of those 4 guys.
I think so.
All right, let's talk about your column you wrote, Steve, about punt returners, which is not an official position group breakdown, but kind of is because why not? So the team has an open competition for punt returner right now, and kick returner, I think, too, it's safe to say. And, there was an article written not long ago, or at least something written, that listed 5 names, maybe 6 names of guys who are competing right now for that job. It's DeAndre Carter, Isaiah Wright, Danny Johnson, Steve Sims Jr., Adam Humphries, and then Dax Milne. Or Milne.
Milne, I think.
Milne, is that how? Yeah.
Milne.
Dax
yeah.
Milne, the rookie we drafted in the 7th round.
Well, those names came from Nate Cascore in a media session.
Right.
That was the special teams coach, Washington special team coach Nate Cascore said those names.
Right.
That's where that came from. So yeah, it's my column, which was last Monday. I've slept since then.
Right.
But it's just amazing to me how utterly awful Washington's punt return game has been for as long as it has.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to think when it was last pretty good, and I have to go back to when Rock Cartwright was here returning punts.
Well, I mean, look, I have it in front of us. The only real good year they had in the last 10 years was 2016 when Jameson Crowder balled out for about 10 games.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I remember that.
Yeah, and so he was averaging 11.9 yards per carry. But there have been years when they've been the worst in the entire NFL. And they've, at best, over the past 10 years, have been sort of ranked in the high 20s, and most of the time they're in the low 20s.
Right.
In terms of yards per return. So they've just been utterly atrocious for whatever reason for a long time. And so Nate Cascore spoke to the media a couple weeks ago, or maybe a week ago now, about this. And those are the names he rattled off, the ones that Jamal just said. I mean, none of them are Brian Mitchell.
No.
None of these guys should excite you that much. This is sort of what he has to work with more so than anything else. Now, DeAndre Carter is the guy who they did bring in specifically because of his returning ability. Carter is the guy who is basically only a punt returner. So if you have to put someone in the lead, it's probably him. I mean, he's averaged 9.3 yards per return, which doesn't sound like a ton, and that's not exactly Tyreek Hill, but that's also better than every year other than 2016 for Washington the past 10 years. And in 2012, they averaged 9.3 yards too. So that would automatically make him the second best punt returner of the past 10 years if he could do that.
Mm-hmm.
So out of this group, and the guy on the outside looking in is Dax Milne. He's never really been a punt returner. They throw him out there because you might as well give him a shot.
Right.
Isaiah Wright did it in college. He did it briefly here and was terrible. Steve Sims has been mediocre at best. Denny Johnson was a kick returner, not a punt returner. So Adam Humphries is the other guy Cascore mentioned later. Was talking about Humphries, but Humphries, if he's a starting slot receiver, he probably is not going to be a punt returner. So that Cascore put him kind of on the outside looking in, although Humphries is the other guy who's done it a lot. So Humphries and Carter are the two guys who've had a lot of experience at it. So you got to sort of by default put Carter in the lead, but not because he's great, just because he's less than bad.
Yeah, I've got their numbers right here. They've actually got the exact same amount of punt returns, Carter and Humphries, 63 each over their career.
Right.
Which is not a ton, but it's at least some. 9.3 is not an elite number by any means, but if you can get close to picking up an extra first down on average, that's what you want. It means your field is one first down shorter every time. In the broad scheme of things. And I'm with you. There's no one in this group that really makes you think this could be the guy.
No.
And on kick returns, they're all very average. Danny Johnson averaged 22.5 in the last few years.
Most kick returns are fair caught or
touchbacks now.
Touchbacks anyway.
Frankly, the whole, and I don't want to get into it today, the whole kick return philosophy in the NFL is wrong right now. And all these special team coaches are coaching these guys to do the wrong thing. So I won't get into that and why that is, but I've with the way the rules have changed, they're all wrong, and they need to change.
Perhaps someone got to write a column about that.
I could probably do that. It would be very Chris Russell, like just saying, I know more than you, seasoned coach.
I say that every week, Alex. Are you kidding me?
Now, for me, I'll go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, lastly, the biggest thing that's going to be hard about this is whoever wins this job, that's one of your receiver slots. Because it's not going to be Danny Johnson returning punts. He doesn't do that. And the times he's done it, it hasn't gone well. So whoever wins this job, you got to realize they're taking up probably your fifth or sixth wide receiver slot. So, that's something to be aware of, too, when you're talking about how this roster gets built.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't know what the punt return situation is gonna look like. There's so many different people involved in the mix, and who knows like what's gonna be good. What I will say is there's always that one guy. We have 3 preseason games this year. I don't know how they're going to work that in the preseason in terms of getting all these guys these opportunities, but there's always going to be that one guy who has that flash of a play at special teams as a return man, and that kind of boosts them like dramatically ahead of the other guys. I don't know who that guy's going to be because there's so many people in the mix, but I can say, and I've been saying this for a long time as well, the only way Steven Sims Jr. can make this roster is going to be as a kick return man. Punt return, we kind of seen how that went, but a lot of people just keep forgetting for whatever reason. The rookie year, the undrafted rookie year, he was excellent as a kick returner. And for whatever reason, the very next year they said, you know what, we're going to put you at punt return and see how you do because of how you looked on kick return. It made... And it was ideal in a sense, but when you realize he just was not the same type of person because the dynamics of returning a punt versus a kick return is a little bit different. He was terrible. And with that being said, I don't know who's gonna look at who's gonna rise to be the cream of the crop at punt return, but I can tell you, Steven Sims Jr. I think he's a dog as a kick returner. He's a playmaker. He has a little bit more open field compared to a punt return. So whenever he has those opportunities to return a kick, that is what makes him special because he's quick. and he has better field vision when the blockers are set up in front of you versus you having to worry about if you got a fair catch, if you have enough space to return a punt and things like that. You just know that whenever that play is in field, when the ball is in field or in play as a kickoff, you got a little bit more space and you can see the blockers right in front of you and you know where the defenders are coming from. So that's kind of my position on kick return. It's Steven Sims' job to lose, but that's if they decide to try him out there. So who knows what the coaches are thinking, but that's where I'm at.
You know who the team should have kept years ago was Brandon Banks.
Yeah, he was never the same after he got stabbed in the stomach.
Brandon Banks has had a full career as a punt returner in the CFL and done pretty well all these years.
He has. It's kind of weird though. Like, what? First off, what happened? Did they just cut him and moved on? Like, that's just because I don't remember anymore.
Well, he got stabbed in like a nightclub.
Yeah, he got stabbed in the stomach and missed like the rest of the year, and then they just let him go.
Yeah, and they just let him go, and then we've changed coaches since then. But
I think 3 times.
Yeah, because in my study of the Washington punt returners, it's in the column from last Monday. Really, there's been 3 guys who've had any sort of success at all, and that was Jamison Crowder, who was good for half a year at punt return, very good, outstanding. He was the best in the NFL for about a half a year. Brandon Banks, and then Andre Roberts was the other one, who had some decent returns. It was those 3 guys, and Banks, like we just said, kind of moved on and got stabbed, got caught up in coaching changes, but he's the guy who all these years has been a consistently good punt returner. Mm-hmm. So in hindsight, they probably should have kept him.
Yeah.
But other than those 3 guys,
it's been.
And Crowder was bad, except for that one half a year.
Right.
They just have had just junk all these years.
My part of my issue is they keep on getting these guys who they want to do it, and then those guys end up being players on offense or players on the defense, or
they just suck.
Or they
like
just
Trey
suck.
Quinn.
But like with Crowder, he's turned into a good slot receiver. You don't want to risk your good slot receiver in return duty as much. And but
again. Yeah. Crowder had had a half a year where he was good too. Yeah. He had a whole year where he wasn't good at all.
Right. But turning back to these guys, if you're just going by the numbers, Carter, Humphreys, and they're probably the 1 and 2 in terms of NFL experience. And then Isaiah Wright did it a ton in college, and was among the best returners in college. When he came out.
I have no faith in his ability to do it here. He was horrible.
I don't know because you'd think with special teams, not a lot changes in terms of your ability to just catch a ball and run. Like punts don't get different in the NFL versus college. So I don't know what happened to him there. It was a little surprising. The other thing that we never talk about with special teams though is the blocking, of course, up front, which I've always thought our blocking has not been that great against gunners and on the edges. But, that's a whole nother conversation, too, in terms of position groups.
It's a whole nother position group breakdown.
Yep. I could do 8 position group breakdowns for the special teams, probably, if I wanted to.
Please don't.
All right, guys. I don't know if we have anything else we want to talk about with special teams, or do we just kind of want to wrap up the show because we're over time?
We're over a magical time in which we've imposed on ourselves for no particular reason.
Well, because we did 4-hour shows at one point. So
we did one 4-hour show, Alex. We didn't do multiple 4-hour shows.
Yes, that's true.
And that show never saw the light of day.
I think it's on our Facebook page if people want to see it.
Is it?
Yeah.
We have a Facebook page?
Or I'm sorry,
still?
YouTube. We do have a Facebook page too, but yes.
That's crazy. I didn't even know
that. God knows how long. We haven't done anything with it in forever.
Yeah.
That's why.
I occasionally post the shows up there. It doesn't get any traction, though. All right, guys. I think that should wrap up this week's show then. Tune in next week where we try and pad some more as we figure out what to do while the team's not doing anything.
We will be addressing the cornerback group in our position.
Oh, that's a good group. That's a deep group, so that could take up a show. All right.
There'll be some news. We'll talk. We'll have fun somehow. Maybe we'll do play a game.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do Kermit again for an hour. It's harder than you think, people, to do Kermit the Frog for an entire hour.
You need a lot of water just to keep the vocal cords.
Yes.
Say, good luck, Steve. Good luck.
All right, guys. You guys have a good week, and we will see you next weekend. Bye.
Yeah.